One of the leading causes of global depression is lower socioeconomic status. For the people who don't know what socioeconomic is, it is the study of a person's income, education, job opportunities, access to the resources, healthcare, so on and so on. The societies or countries with the lower socioeconomic status tend to suffer more from the chronic diseases in comparison to those of higher socioeconomic status. When you have lower income, that also means that you cannot have access to the good education, which means that you cannot have the good job opportunities, which also means that you cannot have access to the good resources, including a good healthcare. And that is why the people with the lower socioeconomic status, they suffer more from depression, stress, anxiety, and other mental health related issues. Such kind of the societies are also exposed to extreme violence and other kind of the crimes, including robbery, burglary, theft, etc. The reason for that is because of the lack of the resources and lack of the education and lack of the welfare benefits. People do not have any choice but to take the path of the crime. For instance, we can take example of Chicago, the same cities with two different sides, the south side of the Chicago and north side of the Chicago. South side of the Chicago, the crime rates are significantly higher than the north side of Chicago. The reason is north side of the Chicago is a bit rich than south side of the Chicago. North side of the Chicago gets more investments. It has more businesses. It is rich as compared to the south side of the Chicago. And that is why we see the neighborhoods like Englewood have more crime rates and more burglaries and the homicide rates than the north side of the Chicago. And this is not limited to only the cities, but globally. Let's take the example of the Syria and Finland. Finland is the happiest country in the world, but Syria, on the other hand, is the most depressed country. And the reason is because Syria, for past couple of decades, has been suffering from constant wars and hunger. And that has led the high rates of depression and suicide rates among the Syrian population. Finland, on the other hand, is one of the richest countries in the world with a good economy, good per capita GDP, good education, and the governing system. But that does not mean that the wealth is the only thing that is needed to improve the people's mental health. Because if we see the happiest country is Finland, but the richest country is Liechtenstein. The reason why Finland is happier than Liechtenstein is because Finland have the better education system, they have low corruption rate, they have cleaner environment, they have better welfare benefits, and these all contribute to improve the mental health overall of the people and thus the physical health. The United Kingdom is ranked number 2 on global depression charts. It is very surprising that despite having a good economy and higher per capita GDP, the people of UK are suffering from such kind of a mental health crisis, which indicates that a good economy or higher per capita GDP does not ensure the well-being of the people. Sometimes economy is just an illusion. 49% of the UK's population is living paycheck to paycheck. And that is not because they're lazy. That is not because they do not want to work, but because the inflation has been rising constantly and the incomes haven't been increasing. The student loans, bank credits, home and car insurance, the other kind of the utility bills, when they pile up on the people and they do not receive any kind of the support or subsidy from the government, it financially crushes them, which causes depression, anxiety, stress, and the other mental health related issues. And when they do not even get the good health care because of their financial situation and no support from the government, the suicide rates go higher and higher. The other big factor that affects the people's socioeconomic status is the monopoly of the big businesses. When the big businesses occupy the markets, the small businesses have no choice but to shut down their businesses and make some other way to earn their livings. Around 45% of the small businesses were forced to shut down by the US government permanently during the COVID era, which caused a 25% rise in the depression rates. Just like the United States, millions of small businesses disappeared during the pandemic worldwide, and most of them, they could never recover. This shows that the government has always been more lenient towards the corporations rather than the ordinary people. When that happens, the governments are not only killing the small businesses or their financial revenue, they're also affecting their mental health by depriving them of the basic necessities and the resources, especially the children. According to a report by UNICEF, around 150 million children globally fell into multidimensional poverty during the COVID era because of the lack of resources, education, water, and the basic necessities of life. And not just that, in the countries like Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and some of the other countries in the Middle East, the child-to-girl marriages are not uncommon. And most of these marriages happen because of families' poor financial conditions. The father hopes some amount of the money that he can use to feed the rest of the family in exchange of marrying his daughter. In May 2026, BBC published a report where they spoke to an individual in Afghanistan named Abdul Rashid Azimi, where Abdul claimed that he's willing to sell his daughter because if he does that, he will be able to feed the rest of his children for at least 4 years with the money that he will receive. And this is not the isolation event. These kind of the tragedies, they are very common, not only in the Afghanistan, but a lot of the backward countries in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. And the worst part is that despite having hundreds of the NGOs in these countries, people's socioeconomic status is not improving. Their mental health crises are not ending. Some of these countries having endless wars, constant hunger and poverty have no hope whatsoever that their financial condition or their mental health will improve anytime soon whatsoever. So they are hoping for nothing but their end time, which is very tragic. These people are left alone and ignored, not by only the NGOs or the government or the politicians, but even the ordinary people like us. So what is it that could be done in order to improve people's not only the financial situation, but also their overall health? Well, one of the effective methods is to apply the social determinants of health, which is to build the good neighborhoods, provide the clean and neat environment to the people, have access to good healthcare subsidized by the government, have access to the good education regardless of somebody's financial status, have access to all the resources regardless of how rich or how poor you are. That will provide the economic stability and also build the better societies. These kind of the models have already been tested in the countries like Finland, where the results have been tremendous and that actually have improved, evidently improved, not only the financial situation, but also the overall health of the people. In order to bring the change and raise people from the poverty and improve their mental health, not only the government or the NGOs have to work, but we people have to come together in order to make the world better for everybody. We cannot build a perfect society, but we can keep chasing the perfection till the world gets a little better. The purpose of this video was not to play the blame game, but to raise the awareness backed by the data, articles published in the various magazines, and the other research. The real problem, however, is way bigger than what I have tried to explain in the video. But faith in humanity is worth it. We have been making impossible things possible. If you like the video, like and subscribe.